This episode of the Coarse Grind Podcast has been sponsored in part by Irving Cliff Brewery. If you're in Northeast Pennsylvania and you're looking for some of the finest craft beer around, look no further than the Irving Cliff Brewery, located at 2 Chapel Street in lovely historic Honesdale. With an attention to detail that feels high-end and small-town comfort, Irving Cliff Brewery does beer, and they do it very, very well. Irving Cliff Brewery, 2 Chapel Street, Honesdale, PA 18431. Now on to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Coarse Grind Podcast. With you as always, Sean Rossler, host, creator. How is everyone doing today? This is episode number 35. 35, there's really no joke. I remember 35. It was a while ago, but I digress. You know, the whole Bay thing gets so much attention these days, and it's really one of the most annoying terms I've found or heard ever. That said, I think there's a certain victory in being, quote, before anyone else. For those of you old like me, that's what it stands for, BAE. Lots and lots of firsts have happened on the show. We've had the first Top Chef contestant, first brewmaster, first Chopped contestant, first culinary student. I could go on with that list. They're all pretty cool in their own way. But today's guest gets an extra special tilt of the cap from me for being, in my opinion, the originator, the OG, if you will, of the culinary competition persona, at least on a certain program that's near to my heart, and one of my earliest memories of that competition show, period. Today's guest is the soulful founder of Global Soul Project. Before appearing as a polarized personality on Top Chef, she spent a decade rocking the New York City food scene under renowned chefs Wiley Dufresne, Jean-Georges Van Richten, Caroline Ferranza, Dan Silverman, and Walter Hines. Through the years, she has earned the title Global Soul Chef, creating an entrepreneurial path of conscious contributions around the globe, including pop-up restaurants, events, and private dinners in San Francisco, New York City, and Miami. You may also find her on a cruise with Olivia Travel, hosting a radio show, facilitating creative empowerment workshops, planting a giving garden, promoting You Rock energy, or doing voiceovers. And whatever she is doing, she brings a genuine smile, infectious laugh, and warm spirit. I know this, I've seen it, I believe it. She's devoted to empowering kids, ending hunger, strengthening communities through creativity, food, and music. Residing in South Florida, looking for a space to open her kitchen playground, my wife just about jumped out of her skin when I told her who I had the honor of talking to today. So let's get to that. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, my guest today, Top Chef persona, conscious chef, empowerment trainer, and dream concierge, overall kick-ass human being, Chef Josie Malave. How are we doing, Josie?
I'm great. Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much. You just made my day.
I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. This has been one of those long-time pursuits, as are some of your colleagues, and as I always find, God damn, is it worth it? It is so worth the pursuit. So, without further ado, for those who have never checked out the program before, for those of you who have and have the short-term memory like I do, we have starters, we have mains, we have afters. Starters, the history of the person behind the plate. Mains, where the person is today. And afters, a little bit more non-conformist questioning. But I assure you, no one has ever been harmed in the recording of the show. So, without further ado, Chef Josie, tell me about what and where you grew up eating.
Oh, well, I am a native South Floridian. I grew up in South Florida, and most of those years were in a little suburb. We'll call it a suburb for sake of just understanding. But it was a little place called Hialeah. And, this is where I had, my first encounter with Caribbean food. My parents are Puerto Rican, Italian, and Filipino. So I already have, the United Nations sitting down at my table every night. And then growing up in Hialeah, it's intensely saturated, and I'll say, intensely saturated is good, of Cuban culture.
Just generally intentionally saturated. I like
that. And, it's just rich in Cuban culture. My best friends growing up were Cubans, and their grandparents, and just being able to sit down at their tables. And it was interesting because, Hialeah is culturally diverse. I mean, everyone knows it as a place where a large or a condensed portion of Cuban culture resides in South Florida. And I had Asian friends from Vietnam and my Chinese friends, and it was really interesting how those cultures kind of meld together, and you would get this kind of cross-pollination of food, and it would become this like Chino Latino, and it's just real interesting. So I've been growing up around some really yummy food most of my life.
Yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania where we eat meat and potatoes. That's really all I have.
I hear that's very popular.
Oh, yeah, it's great. It's really diverse, Josie. Thanks for the sympathy vote there. I appreciate it. Total side note, I can't believe I'm on the other end of a phone call from that iconic laugh. That's blowing my mind right now. I want you to know. That's crazy. So, growing up, would you say you were a picky eater? It doesn't sound like it.
No, I personally wasn't. I've been pretty adventurous since I popped out of the womb, honestly. And, I haven't, unlike other families, and I know that this, it has happened, right? But I know how in other families, maybe people are not as adventurous at the dinner table. My family, on the other hand, my mother is Italian and Puerto Rican. And if you can even imagine the types of flavors that show up, obviously the staple for both cultures is garlic. So, we're already off to a good start. Right. And then, depending on what my mom was feeling like, we always had, just the most delicious, like, I would say, it would be an Americanized type of Italian food, because I have been to Italy and I now know the difference. But like her family was from Poughkeepsie and that sort of thing in upstate New York, and so we have in New York and all kinds of different in New York City, but that kind of Italian food, right? And so she would just like so soulful and just like, oh my God, it hugs your ribs. It was delicious. And then when she felt connected to her Latin side, I guess, we would have the arroz con gandules, and we would do, she would make we have different kinds of tamales, right? So like Puerto Ricans, they, we pasteles, and it's it's basically a tamale, but instead of corn, you use green plantain, and it's really delicious. And I remember watching like my grandmother come over and everyone start making the pasteles, and at first I didn't really like it. I liked the tamale better. And so, oh God, blasphemous, But
No.
Then I started liking, I started liking this pastele and really like appreciating it, right? And we have the mofongo and all that good stuff. It's just like good soul food that is delicious. There's no like rhyme or reason necessarily, but there is. My mom would sit there and try to like share a recipe after I became a professional, right? And she'd go, oh, well, what is that? What are you doing there? You need to do a little bit of this, and you need to cut your onions like this. And it was just so funny, and I love it because it's about that flavor and that love, and the secret's out, right? Love is the secret ingredient.
That's it. It's not about a metric. It's not about a poundage or volume. It's about just what feels good, I guess.
Nurtured.
Yeah, for sure. So you're running over this menu that basically has me sitting here, not necessarily hating my surroundings, but pretty close. I want you to know that. Out of all those childhood foods, of which it sounds like you had literally a plethora, are there ones that specifically give you that nostalgic heartache?
Oh yeah, my mom used to make, and this is the dish she has waiting for me anytime, when I lived in New York for 10 years, I was away from home, away from the family, and anytime I would fit it into my busy schedule back then, and make it home, my mom would always have what we call rabo, right?
Okay.
So that is oxtail. And
Oh,
she, again, would blend her Italian and her Puerto Rican into this dish. But because it was like a tomato based oxtail stew with these beautiful lima beans in it. And I mean, like when I come home, that's exactly what I want. you
yeah,
know?
because oxtail is by default more of a Puerto Rican Southern kind of gig, isn't it? Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong. And yet,
Well,
to add the tomato base with the limas, that kind of takes it Italian.
yeah, well, you know, you'll see it like an oxtail is really, I would say, across the board. I would say that it's more about an economic uh,
Mm,
place because before it got kind of like popular now, right?
right, right,
And it used to be the cheapest cut
right.
of meat, right? So you'll see a lot of cultures who are closer to the poverty line or living with, a minimal amount of resources. These are the meats, and
Right.
and you'll see that like short rib. Also, short rib wasn't the fancy cut.
Mm,
It got I would say its fame from chefs that were like, okay, how do we like make delicious food?
mm-hmm.
We bring it from our home experiences. Like my family was eating short rib. They were eating oxtails way before I even knew what it was, really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we just did something with beef short ribs here at the house, and I'm amazed at how expensive they are.
Yeah.
Comparatively. So that's awesome. See that, kids? You get a free education when you listen too. Oxtail, the cheaper cuts, the naughty bits, if you will. The beef cheek too, tongues, that kind of thing. Although I don't know
Yeah.
that tongue has necessarily gotten the resurgence that oxtail has, but let's be honest.
Yeah.
So obviously you're surrounded by this incredible backdrop, incredible culinary backstory. If you had to peg someone as your culinary influence, I'm assuming it's mom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure, front to back.
Yeah, it's totally mom. And I have to give a shout out to dad because once the parents were divorced, he tried,
Sure.
and that first few months of him on his own cooking for us was, I mean, those are the times I'll forget,
Sure,
but
sure. You're forgiving.
yeah, I'm forgiving, and but it was like spam with tomatoes and rice. It was like a mix of Filipino with his southern roots because he grew up in Georgia,
Uh-huh.
and so a Filipino man in Georgia. That's another story, but
That's a book right there. That's not a story.
but the real thing is that I mean, I guess we were luckiest when he went out and he decided to like get connected to his Filipino roots. He went out and bought a cookbook, and it was cool because he would come home and he didn't know how to cook, but he took this cookbook and he would go in there and pick a recipe every night. He'd go out and do the shopping, and we would become his sous chefs, whether we liked it or not.
Right.
And I kept always like thinking like, oh, Dad, aren't there other recipes in the book besides these, that you're choosing? And he would always pick like, the squidding something or another, or the like, pig brain. And I was like, and I was a kid. So it just, ugh. And until he started getting into the adobos, and then I was open to diniguan, and I would start getting into all of those types of foods. I was like, okay, and kari, man, we could eat that every night. And, kari is like the Filipino version of oxtail stew. So, and it's really delicious. If you haven't had it, you definitely have to try it.
Right
It's
on.
like stewed in deliciousness. And then like in a peanut braised sauce, right?
Ooh.
Peanut, almost like peanut buttery, right?
Right.
And then it's thickened with toasted rice that's been basically pulverized into a powder, into a flour, and then thickened with that. So it's kind of like this gelatinous almost type of stew, and it is. I'm telling you, it's banging.
That's amazing. That certainly doesn't sound anything short of amazing. And you know what? It sounds like part of your again super well-roundedness. I mean, as a human being overall, but as a chef, it sounds like that experience definitely helped that along.
Yeah, I have an interesting family.
I think we all do in one way or the other. My mom just melted a plastic laundry basket next to a space heater in my kid's bathroom, but again, I won't go into that. Yeah, it's a good time. A real good time. Totally unrelated, but, stretching there. So,
yeah, no, sure.
When was it for you, Josie, that you looked at food less as sustenance and more as I want to do? When did that happen for you? Do you have a moment that?
Oh yeah, of course.
Right
And I'll tell you, this is probably the first time I'm public about it. Because I'll be honest, in the past, I was not really clear on how authentic I was planning on being in public. Honestly, how
Right.
vulnerable I was willing, how deep I would let you in. And, folks don't really know the backstory. Food was never my first choice.
Right on.
Honestly, it wasn't. I went to the Actors Studio in New York City when I first arrived, and I auditioned, because you auditioned for it, and I was accepted. But the story behind it is, basically, I don't come from a rich family, so we didn't have anyone to co-sign, get a student loan or anything like that. So, and of course, back then, that was a circumstance. At that moment, I could not see a way or solution past or over,
Sure.
So I said, okay, well, what's the next thing I can do? And I mean, the actor studio, that would have been cool.
Sure.
But then, then I ended up going to the film school there, the New York City Film School. And, again, the parents were like, how are you going to pay for that type of career? How are you going to afford the cameras, Josie? How are you going to do this? And a lot of, not very supportive, I'll say.
Sure.
Maybe they wanted something a little more traditional. I'm not sure. But I was on the train, and I was heading out to Brooklyn, where I was living at the time. And I remember sitting there going, oh my God, I came to New York. I'm 24 years old, and what am I doing with my life? And, really that question, right?
Sure.
And I'm sitting there on the train and heading out to the last stop on the number 4 train out to Utica Avenue. I mean, if you know anything about New York, it's like out in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
But it's far away from the action, I'll just say. And I had great food there. I'll just say that too, okay? But
Mm-hmm.
lots of Jamaican, Caribbean food. It was
Right.
awesome. But I was sitting there, and I look up, and there was this poster, and this is so ridiculous, but it's true. It's like there was this poster, and it said, if you could cook and travel the world, would you do it, basically, right?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what, I don't know about the cooking, but I could totally travel the world, it started to land for me that here I grew up in this like super culinary rich family, right? We
Right.
were not shy of food. We were knee deep in it. Okay.
Right.
And what I realized is like, why am I trying so hard to do things and learn these new skills and like dive into something that I really have no grasp on? I mean, this is like a God-given gift. Like, that's natural, it's I don't even know. It seems like I have a step up on everyone if I explore this route. And so it was more like an exploration of necessity and just coming to Jesus moment that I said, okay, well, I guess maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And I must have gone to 7 different culinary schools throughout New York. And I realized that at the time, the program that offered me the best value for what I was able to create was the Art Institute of New York, which is no longer around, but
Right. But you got what you needed.
Yeah, I got what I needed, and I really took that to another level with it. I mean, for me, I was like, all right, it was like an all-in moment.
That's such a cool story. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's huge. That means a lot. Just to hear that from point A to point B, and I mean, obviously, being in the industry, and anyone who's listened to the show before, you're not the only ship that's gone in a 90 to 180 degree direction. That's
right.
But it's always the realization, and I think the common thread between all those other people and you as well, like, it's always this realization of like, this is part of me already. This has been part of me. Why don't I just use this and build on it? That's so cool. That's so awesome. And so here you are. Fast forward to today, Top Chef season 1. I found out who Chef Josie was, and you're on my talk show today. That's crazy. That's madness. That's absolute madness. So, taking a step out of the Q&A format, Global Soul Project. That's really your gig in the here and now, correct?
Yeah. That's my big why.
That's your big why. Give us the cliff notes on the why. What is it?
For me, none of it is worth it if I don't have a purpose behind every choice I'm making, every action I take. And Global Soul Project it was something that I created it was the closest place in my heart. Again, I shared with you that, I don't come from a affluent family, but what was available to me was a lot of love and unconditional love. And, did that always look pretty? No.
Right.
I mean, let's be real with each other. But coming up through this local type of public school education, certain opportunities that were available to me. And I mean, I get that I have taken extraordinary leaps and bounds into the unknown. And it's because I credit a lot of that to, the community that was around me, my family, good and bad. All of those experiences helped to create a nurturing environment that allowed me to explore, right? So Global Soul Project is about empowering our young people and, to speak into something that is like youth equality. That's what I'm talking about. There's a lot of politics going on, and I don't want to necessarily get into it.
Right.
But for me, politics to me is very simple. When we are a fed nation, then most of the social challenges that we're facing right now are not going to even exist. Now, I know that it's hard for people to wrap their head around that idea, but Global Soul Project operates from a principle, an assertion that food is at the center of all of our social challenges. And if we're to create solutions, then it's a systemic approach. It can't be just, okay, right now there are 45 plus million people who go hungry in this country alone every single day. 45 million. And there are plenty of organizations who are dedicated, some awesome organizations who are dedicated to ending hunger. However, it's still a conversation right now. And every single day in this country, we throw away, we put in a garbage over 200 million pounds of food.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to be a mathematician to figure out that those numbers, I mean, how is this even happening? Yeah. So, Global Soul Project for me is a way for me to engage a community, empower a community through food, with food, education, workshops, fun events, because I love having fun. So
yeah, you seem real uptight. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Super.
Yeah. Wow.
But that, that's really what it's about for me. And it's at the end of the day, our end goal is to be a part of the solution in ending hunger. And in my lifetime, I'm 41 now. Yep, I just told you that. Whoa.
I just turned 39. We're cool. We're tight.
Okay.
We're fine.
We're good. We're good. But 41 years old, and I have a niece and nephew, and they're beautiful, and they're awesome, and I have like an entire army of adopted nieces and nephews.
Right on.
And for me, it's really important. I have no children of my own. I have 3 dogs, but I don't have any children of my own. And I still understand my responsibility as a steward of the planet, as basically the a baby elder. Yeah. But I understand my responsibility in helping to create a world that these young leaders, these youth, the children who are being born every single day, that they have something to work with, to inherit, because they're going to inherit our mess, right, or they're going to inherit our gift.
Right.
And it's really simple for me. So that's, in a nutshell, what Global Soul Project is about for me.
Wow, that's. I'm a father. My wife and I are parents of 3 beautiful young boys, 8, 6, and 3. And I don't think in 35 episodes, congratulations, you have honestly brought me to almost lump and throat status of what you're saying. So I don't care if I touch on a single other question on this piece of paper here in front of me. This is important. This is absolutely huge. And honestly, like on air, for what it's worth, you have my and the show's support. If there's any way that we can be of assistance, count us in. And we could certainly talk offline about that before we're, basically having an Oprah moment here on the podcast. So, honest to God, that's God's work right there, Josie. That's amazing. Super, super proud, super honored to be talking to about it. Now, let's sidestep just a hair, lighten the mood a bit. You mentioned to me that you had something else coming up this week, as a matter of fact, that you were closing or something.
Hey, we're not. No, don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
So what can you tell me about this new thing that's not going to happen? Of course, because why would it?
Oh yeah. So, this is something that's been long in the making. And for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. And, I've learned to trust and surrender where I'm at and understand that when it does happen and when things happen, it's exactly it's perfect and you're ready for it. I can't say that back then I would have been ready to accept it or even care for it. So, there's no regrets, right? And right now, the coolest part is, it really was kind of about talking about a job. Honestly, I was like, you know what? I need something a little more, I don't know, like daily, where I'm not just like traveling around or doing events or cooking in private homes. Like I'm really feeling ready, to get back out onto the food scene. I know, like, I've been MIA for a little while. I was working on myself,
Yeah.
a lot of things came up for me during the last season of Top Chef, and at the end of the day, the best me is going to be the best me for the world. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
So I've been working on myself, and now I really feel ready to not only step up and be who I'm meant to be, and do what I'm supposed to do. But this opportunity kind of just like fell in my lap. And again, these things, they fall in my lap.
So,
And I was thinking about it, and we were talking about possibly coming in as a chef, and it was a really like little small restaurant, and they were afraid they weren't going to be able to afford me, and I told them it's not about the money. I just want to start cooking again and like
nice.
get in there, and then they said, well, I'm thinking about getting out.
Ah.
And so, do you have any interest in buying the restaurant? And I was like, are you kidding me? So it went from, it basically went from, oh, I'm coming in for a job to, hey, do you want to buy this restaurant? So now, I'm thinking that it's going to be a really great, like, local spot. I can't really jinx it,
Sure. And we don't have to go into specifics, but I do know you mentioned it. I knew you were excited about it and didn't know if you could sprinkle any fish flakes on the top of the tank, as it were.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's just say it will be in South Florida.
South Florida. Okay, you heard it here. Chef Josie Malave, South Florida. Be watching, because it's going to be huge. Mm-hmm. Isn't that how Trump said it's going to be huge?
Huge.
Ugh. So speaking of getting you back to cooking, let's get the topic back to cooking. When you're going to be cooking, as you're looking down the figurative barrel of this new gig, where are you pulling your culinary inspiration from? Person, place, thing, idea?
I am really, for this one, this concept is, when I stepped down and started like looking at myself, I started playing in a raw food type of arena.
Okay.
And, I hold and host retreats and this sort of thing. And I was, I'm really connected to how food nurtures our body, right?
Sure.
Because again, with Global Soul Project, for me, it's about nurturing. And, I think that eating raw or vegan or plant-based foods gets a bad rap because, to eat healthy, man, that's going to taste like cardboard. Well, that's not true, and you'll probably, notice that a few of my other colleagues, like Marcel, for instance, Vigneron from season 2, right? He's out in LA with his, vegetarian, plant-based, predominantly plant-based restaurant. And he had, beef steak and all of that. And so that's awesome. And I to see plant-based foods really kind of coming to the surface, it's fantastic because, it's a part of the solution. I'm not telling people to stop eating meat. I eat meat, and I'm not saying to stop eating meat. Okay.
Right, but it's more sustainable to focus on a plant-based effort.
Yeah, and and if you're going to eat meat, then be conscious of and mindful of where you're sourcing your product from. It's like be responsible, and that's really what it comes down to. Mindful eating for everyone, but for this restaurant, I'm going to come from my soul. The inspiration is a lot of my travels through coastal regions in Europe, and again, I'm really gonna bring some flavors of my home, my upbringing, and I'm the Global Soul Chef, so expect that you're gonna taste some bold, authentic, global flavors, and that's where I'm coming from.
I love it.
But
I love it.
But I think that you're really going to enjoy the concept, though. The concept, as soon as these papers are signed, okay, Sean, I'm calling you, and you're going to get it hot off the presses.
You let me know. I will put that on blast so loud, people are going to need earplugs. Absolutely. That's phenomenal. So raw food and plant-based, and actually one of Marcel's season mates, Ilan, who was on the show not too long ago, he's got Ramen Hood out in Calgary.
Yep.
I believe that's a vegan ramen house, yeah?
Yep.
So, yeah, it's definitely, and I'm glad people are starting to kind of wake up to that fact. I certainly never would have ascribed to it. Early on in the show, episode 3, I had a vegan baker / chef, no less, Natalie Slater of BaconDestroy.com. And she kind of gave me some schooling. One of the first things out of her mouth was, hey, Oreos are vegan. My mind was on the wall. I'm like, wait a minute. Whoa. And ever since then, it's been a learning experience. So I really look forward to seeing what comes out of there. Obviously, raw and plant-based is becoming a big thing. What, in your opinion, is the next big thing in food? Do you think it's raw and plant-based, or is it something else?
That's a good question. I don't know if I'd put it out there just yet. But I mean, honestly, I think that if it's not a big thing, it's the smart thing, for any restaurateur, any, budding restaurateur. Anyone who wants to open a restaurant needs to know that, the failure rate is through the roof.
Sure.
And so if you have any plans on putting your nest egg into a restaurant, I'm going to invite you to really reconsider, unless you're willing. I think a lot of people fall into a trap of, we have to have something on the menu for everyone,
Right.
And
we can't specialize. That drives me nuts.
Yeah, so now all of a sudden your cool menu becomes, the feeling of a diner. I don't know about you, but I get overwhelmed when I go into a restaurant and I see so much on a menu. I don't know what to choose. It's it's too much.
I actually, my wife and I were just up in my hometown for my birthday and my dad's birthday and Zombie Jesus Day, aka Easter, and she took me out to dinner at this new place that sprung up. Really, really awesome, top of stock kind of thing. And I walked in, and menus front and back, real fine print. And the house staff comes over and says, can I take your order? And I hand him the menu, and I said, you go back to your chef. You tell them to take care of me as if I were a guest in their home. Whatever's on the menu, pair it with whatever you want me to drink, and leave it at that.
Yeah.
And you should have seen the look of confusion on their face. I said, tell them to go do that, and we will be fine. Wouldn't you know it, an hour and a half, 2 hours later, the owner and the chef come out and are sitting at the table oh my God, thank you. You're one of the first people to really get the concept. And I'm like, well, no shit. If you go into a restaurant, let them do what it is they want to do for you. Don't go in and demand what it is you want, necessarily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I get it. And I've just never wanted to be that kind of restaurant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
And maybe that's, where I failed to connect with everyone. But now I think that the concept I'm bringing is going to it's a little kitschy. I'm not going to lie. It's a little kitschy, but it's cute. And the food's going to be fantastic. And it's food that's close to my heart. There's going to be, the raw thing, right?
Right?
Let's just say there is going to be a raw bar involved, okay?
Oh, I love it.
Raw bar
I
involved.
love it. I love it. See, listen, kitschy, cute, but inspired with soul is different than kitschy and cliche. And I will take kitschy and cute with inspired soul 10 times out of 10. And it sounds like you've got that on lock. No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah. All right. Well, okay, so those are the mains. Let me jump into the afters here, because I know you're a busy human being, and I want to make the best use of your time here. The after's little off the cuff, little out of the ordinary, but again, no one's ever been hurt.
Okay.
I am standing in your kitchen. Imagine it, if you will. Creepy, but I'm standing right there. You can pick professionally or at home. It's your pick entirely. What music do I hear?
What?
What music do I hear?
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
I usually, start off like a Pandora channel with some Aretha Franklin.
Nice.
And then it really goes all over the soulful gamut. It's like awesome, but yeah.
All right, Aretha. No, that's clutch right there. I'll take that any day of the week. Actually, the last guy I had on the show, his first answer was, "Oh yeah, Pandora channel, hip hop barbecue." I'm like, holy shit, Pandora should be paying me some coin here because everyone's dropping their name.
Yeah, well, it's just the easiest. Sometimes like I love the soulful music and I love rock and roll. So, it's like if I'm feeling and RIP, to Prince. I just heard that news
Oh my
today,
God.
but,
is that crazy or what?
yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's like that's every single day when I hear I lost a really good friend this year who was who will continue to live on as a total rock star and just the most giving human being you've probably ever met. Really inspired people to live the freest, most expressed life possible. And, she created a space for an entire community of people to like grow and explore themselves and like live, and that was my friend Ellie out of New York City. But then you hear Prince dying and it's like, honestly, Ellie to me was like a complete total rock star, and everything that she did in her community and in her life and everything she was creating. And then now we have Prince, and Prince was like the soundtrack of my entire life, Any album, there was one album, there was a song that fit, and a lot of folks used to laugh all the time. They're like, Josie, every time you're in the car, Prince comes on the radio. And I'm like, it's Prince and I, we're just 1 degree of separation here,
I love it.
But yeah, so when it comes to music, I love like, just throwing on a Pandora, because it really depends what mood I'm in. I can, blast it on Blondie and like, boom.
Yeah. A little bit of variety, to be sure. All right, so total change of scene. You're going to be stranded on a deserted island. You are only allowed to bring 3 foods or food-type items with you. What would they be and why?
3 foods or food-type items. Okay. Well, that's a good one. I know what tools I'd bring, but the actual foods. I mean, I would bring some seeds, obviously, if I'm going to be stranded on an island. And I love kale, so I mean, and some potatoes, and I would bring probably some like, we definitely need like scallions or garlic, but definitely one of those.
All right.
And then I would just be able, so if I said seeds, and that would, have all kinds of yummies like kale and probably, chili peppers.
Yeah. We'll call it a mixed bag of seeds. You don't know what you get.
A mixed bag of seeds. I don't know yet. Right. And like potatoes for sure. And then like,
I just realized I just said a mixed bag of seeds one day after 420. So I don't know if that's a Freudian slip or not. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, so that would probably be it. And then, definitely like scallions or garlic. I mean, that would be like one of those on the moment decisions.
For sure.
Pressured,
Right on.
Your time ends now. Put your hands up. Sort of thing.
Oh my God. She just said it on the show. Oh my God, that's crazy. That's great. That never gets old. Like periodically, someone from Top Chef on the show will make a Top Chef reference, like just randomly, like, yeah, because I was talking to Gail, and I'm like, you mean Gail Simmons? Oh. Cool, right on. Can't believe I just did a good voice on. Have you ever caught Melanie Denea's books, My Last Supper and the Next? Have you seen either?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God, you are the first. 35 episodes, you were the first person to say yes to that question.
No way!
Aside from my wife, who I interviewed for episode 8, you are the first person to know those books. I shit you not.
Way.
I swear. So cool, you finally get it. I don't have to explain the books. Obviously, you know the format, you know the function of them, and it's actually one night over steaks and red wine. I kind of looked at my wife and I said, I feel like a talk show's in here somewhere. And this was one of the questions that I kind of wanted to tip the hat to as far as the format of the show goes. So, with that, Chef Josie, what would your last supper be?
Oh, my God. You and I are going to have to really talk.
Yeah.
You should just hear something that my partner Marcy and I are working on. Oh my God, you're gonna die. But yeah, my last supper would probably be something like all you can eat crab legs.
I love it. Oh my God, that's awesome.
I just love that. I love like digging into crab legs. I can go and any kind of crab legs. I mean, snow crabs, Alaskan crabs, king crabs. I mean, whatever. I don't really care. Stone claw. I don't care. Just put it. If it's a shellfish of some sort, I can just go to town. I love all the condiments that come with it. Yeah. Whether it be oysters or clams on a half shell. I mean, I just love like that kind of like raw bar.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. And the music that we'd be playing, Aretha, Pandora?
Yeah.
Right on. That's awesome. That's one of the best responses ever. That's what I was actually just on vacation with my wife and my kids down to visit her parents who snowbird down in Florida, no less, down in Naples. And we went out for lunch, and I ended up getting a raw bar tower for my lunch. And they're like, What are you doing? I'm like, don't judge me. Don't you judge me. That's a lot of food. And gone in 60 seconds.
Yeah, well, and it's clean. You know what I mean? So it's like a clean protein.
You walk away not feeling heavy, weighed down with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and finally, Chef Josie Malave. My last question, the simplest one, and yet the most complex at the same time. And yet, I think I know your answer already. What is food to you in one word?
Love.
I knew it. I mean, how could it not be? How could it not be? I actually think you said it up front in like the first minute or two of the show. I'm like, she's already got it. She's already got it. Yeah, given your involvement with everything, that speaks volumes, though. That speaks volumes. And it obviously comes through pretty much everything you do. Now having had the honor of speaking with you, I can honestly say that for real, firsthand. This is the global soul chef right here. Chock full of love. Chock full of love.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
It's let me know how I can support you.
Yeah, totally.
Globalsoulproject.org.
Any other plugs that you got for you tonight?
Oh, well, hey, if you're in South Florida and you want to pick up some, I did this workshop, right, and I told you I've been working on myself a lot. humanitarians.com. So check that out. If you're up to big shit in your life, or let's rephrase. If you're up to big things in your life,
No, we're totally not FCC regulated.
Oh, yeah, no, but I mean, I'm not really up to big shit. That's not what I'm creating, it's so interesting how like conscious I am of my words, because our words have so much power. I mean, they create the world we're living in, and it's like, okay, but if you're up to things in your life and you're like taking yourself to the next level, but maybe something's getting in the way, you don't know what it is, maybe you've been like you're just ready to be a leader in your life and in your community and your family, then check out gratitudetraining.com and you'll see me there. I'm playing on the field only always.
Nice. GlobalSoulProject.org, gratitudetraining.com. And just as an aside, I am not that persistent to many guests. Only the ones who are worth it. And Chef Josie Malave, you have absolutely shown me that my instinct was right for you. So again, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode number 35 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. My producer, as always, has been the Reverend Johnny Lamoria, aka Johnny Leland Robinson. Be sure to check out his Cinematic Pigs Feet podcast. Next episode will be number 36. Stay tuned. It's going to be a good one.